the Talk About It podcast. I'm Lauren Fulmer.
I'm Victor Dantas.
And we have a special guest today. We brought in Jordan Knight. Jordan, how are you, man?
Man, I'm doing great.
Good.
Excited to be here with y'all.
Very
That's
excited.
awesome.
Excited to do this. Excited to have you in. We basically just put this podcast together to really just learn more about each other, learn more about people, bring people in, have an opportunity to kind of tell our story, talk about random stuff throughout life. We always find ourselves coming back to laugh a little, learn a lot, or
Learn a little and laugh a lot.
Yeah, I prefer to laugh a lot. So
Okay, we'll see if we can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But appreciate you coming in today and being a part of this. Let's start off. Let's just talk about you. Give us a little, like what I always call like the elevator.
Yeah, the resume.
Yeah, I mean you got 15 seconds with us in the elevator as we're going up to the 73rd floor or whatever. Right?
Okay. I'm blessed to know you personally, and Victor, blessed to meet you today.
Nice to meet
So
you.
yeah, I grew up in the area. We're in the Warren County, Knox County area.
Mhm.
Yeah. I said when I graduated I was never coming back, and here I am. Blessed to have a wife, Lindsay, who's a school teacher in Galesburg, 4 little kids. We live in Knoxville. I'm a hospice chaplain for an organization called Compassus Hospice. That's my full-time gig. And in addition to, I pastor a little church, Christian church in Knoxville, Illinois. And then if you want to see me, you can show up at any local funeral home. I'm there all the time. I'll be there Saturday. Remember Mr. Bill?
Oh yeah.
So I'm officiating a funeral for a longtime teacher and coach,
Yeah.
Mr. Bob, Mr. Bill.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I do a little bit of everything in terms of, I talk a lot.
No, that's
No,
awesome.
you're good.
I always say the more hats, more tools you can have in your tool belt, the better off you can be, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, you keep very busy. So you're a man, a father, a husband, a son. I always like talk a little bit about what you feel growing up. How
Did you grow up here?
Yeah,
In
well,
Galesburg?
Between Monmouth and Galesburg, so
Okay.
I pass by my old house every
Okay.
time I come this way.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, I grew up in the country.
but
Okay.
so what do you think? Sometimes like get to A to Z. How do you feel you landed where you're at right now?
I'm not sure, man. I would want to tell you the simplest answer is it's something God did, but because I'm a serious. I didn't want to be here in this area. I didn't want to be near my family of origin, and so when it came time for college level, I picked the furthest away that would have me, and I went there, and then moved to the other side, the other end of the country in New Orleans, and lived down there, and I wasn't ever planning on coming back. And now that I live here, raise a family here, I was pretty good spot to raise my kids and to be involved in a small community. It's weird though, being in Galesburg and you grow up, Silver Street, and you're only 6 miles down the road, and now you're a Blue Bullet, and the fight song, I think it just sucks compared to Galesburg, But then you're in the community when we were kids, they're like, there was a lot of woes of the community, and like it's not a good place to be and all this, and nothing good happens here, and then I'm like, well, here I am.
Well, I want to jump on that a little bit. I personally did the same thing.
Yeah.
I went out to Phoenix, Arizona, and swore up and down I would never come back. Found myself a couple of things happen in life. I actually lost a couple of family members. Someone very near and dear to me had a quadruple bypass. After that, I said, you know what, screw it. I'll wave my white flag. I'll come back because family is important to me. And I feel like I kind of stopped chasing my own personal dreams, whatever the heck that was, and ended up right back here in Galesburg. And there's a lot of people in the community and anywhere across the world that'll say, man, this place sucks. And the odds are that person has never left. They've never got a chance to get out and explore. And I say, you could live in the beautiful beaches of Hawaii, and there's someone there that'll tell you this place sucks.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So, it's kind of like when you get out of bed, your feet hit the ground, it's what you make it, man. If you want this place to suck, it will. I promise you.
Yeah, with me was the opposite of that a little bit, because I never thought I would come to the U.S. or live in a small town like Galesburg in Monmouth. yeah, I've always lived in big cities. In Brazil, I lived in a city that's basically the size of Chicago, and then I went to Europe, lived in Lisbon and Athens as well, and then I came to Mammoth, which is completely different than everything I had.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, and then I'm here for 7 years already.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's been 7 years. Went to school, been working.
This feels like home now? Mom
Yeah, this feels like home. And
Have
my
you been
parents.
to the Prime Beef Festival?
Yes.
Oh, you are.
I love
you
it.
Are from
See? You know?
The car show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always like to ask this of people, and maybe you can tell your story, Victor. But so you come here. I assume you knew like at least this much English.
Oh yeah, I didn't know any English. No.
So, yeah,
I
let's
didn't.
talk-
I didn't even know this much. I didn't know anything.
Let's talk about that experience. What did you find yourself?
So when I came here, I needed to learn English to go to school and play soccer and get scholarship. So I came on a tourist visa at first in 2015, and I needed to learn English in 6 months because you can only stay here for 6 months when you have a tourist visa.
Okay.
And in 5 months and a half, I was able to pass the English test. So I was already speaking and understanding everything. So I was able to get scholarship through the school, through Carl Sandburg, and played soccer and went to school. Transferred, got my bachelor, and now I'm a assistant soccer. No, I'm a head coach at Sandburg now. I used to be the assistant, but yeah.
See, that's awesome. It's very cool.
Yeah.
You talk about no matter where you're at, what you make it. You know? And I'm sure there's many people who've been in your position. You sink or you swim, and I'm sure there's many people who sunk.
And I tell you this, when I first got here, I thought I wouldn't have any opportunities because it's a small town. But I mean, that was not what happened. I think I had more opportunities here than I would ever think.
That's probably.
And what I see is that a lot of people complain about the area, about the city, about the town, and they just don't do anything to make something different. They just complain. So that's what I see.
Right.
A lot of people doing, complaining and not doing anything. So
I think it's very common. It's not only is it the easiest route. Look, it's the easiest route is to complain. It's also very contagious too. You know, depending who you're around. You're around these people who typically complain, and the odds are, if you're around it long enough, you're going to complain too. You're going to get convinced that this place sucks. And it's in all reality, the odds are it's probably you that suck. You know.
Are you
not
used
even
to small towns? Are you used to that?
I think in terms of it's been most of my life. You know, the
okay.
biggest town I ever lived in was New Orleans, and that was my biggest time in the big city. But even there, the area I lived, you didn't travel outside of it. It was its own small town within the big city. You know, you saw the same people every day. I mean, it's odd to say your small town encompassed Bourbon Street. I get that. But, you know, I mean, I worked and lived down there. I didn't have a car, so that 14 square blocks was where I stayed.
Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, now my work as a hospice chaplain, you know, you think Monmouth is a small town, but there's way small. And so all the little places that you blink and you're past them, you know, I get to visit people there, and I think there is a lot of opportunity here.
Yes,
a lot of opportunity that I never saw. And and then the bitching quality is pretty universal. It's everywhere you go because it's easy to do, like you say.
Yeah, it's way easy to complain than to actually get up your butt and do something, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but it takes hard work, and it also takes a fear of failing, you know, or looking dumb or looking bad, or you're telling your friends you're going to do something. I mean, I remember when I moved to Arizona, and I found myself moving back. I remember there was like a little bit of my ego that was bruised. Like, I'm back in this town. Everyone thinks I didn't make it, or whatever, you know. And for whatever reason that I did move back, I moved back because, you know, family, and I had lost some family members and almost lost another one that was so important to me that I said, hey, I want to move back, you know. But it was all in my own head that I think, like, people, maybe some were thinking stuff. It doesn't matter if they were or not, you know. It's here I am. And there's plenty of opportunity around, whether, you know, whatever you're going to make it, right?
Yeah.
So
Everything comes about learning from people, like we've always talked. If there is people for you to learn from, you have opportunities, right?
yes.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we, really a foundation that we started talking about, putting together to talk about a podcast, is there is so much to learn. So many people are out here, they have an amazing story to tell. and we have so much to learn from them. And it starts like even with having you come in today. I mean, I know I've talked with you. We've known each other for 20 plus years. There's so much more to learn, but I love, one of my favorite things to say is, if life was easy, we'd all be really good at it. I mean, we would all have that house up on the hill with the brand new Escalade or Suburban or whatever it is that you want to have, and the nicest clothes or whatever. We would all have it, and it'd be really boring at that moment too.
Oh yeah. And imagine if there wasn't anybody for you to learn from. Imagine if you were by yourself in the world. Nothing would make sense.
Yeah.
You could have 10 Ferraris in your garage. You can't, it's not fun to have it without sharing with family, with friends. And, I think people is where we can get not only knowledge from, but enjoyment in life,
Preaching on that Sunday, Victor.
Yeah, okay.
You should give that message, man. You already gave a part of it.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my notes.
Okay.
That's what you got, Seth?
This Sunday at the Christian Church in Knoxville, 10 a.m. on Facebook Live.
Okay.
You can join in. It's the story of the rich farmer and, this desire to keep everything for yourself. And so the story goes that there was a farmer, he had a great season, and he had such a surplus that he had to tear down his small barns and build bigger ones to house all of his wealth. And then he had his vision for his future, that he was going to eat, drink, and be merry because he had enough for the rest of his life. But in the story, it was all about himself, his barns, his wealth, his relaxation, his eat, drink, and be merry. And it was all singular. It was all by himself. And so the Jesus story goes on in that he was a rich fool, and that real wealth was a rich relationship with God. This idea that God loves everybody, well, you need to have a relationship with other people. You need not only a relationship, you want a rich relationship with other people. I think it's the nasty stuff that adds to the flavor.
Oh yeah.
The richness of the relationship is all the chaos and disorder and the failing and the quitting and coming back to the place you didn't want to be in the first place. Dude, I was working at Walmart in Nowheresville, Kentucky, because Hurricane Katrina had happened, and my wife was here going to Monmouth College, and had this on again off again relationship, and I was like, there's dead end jobs in Galesburg that I could get, and at least I'd be closer to her. But I couldn't come back here and work for Walmart. At least at Walmart in Kentucky, nobody from my high school days is gonna wander in. And like you say, like that bruised ego, they said we can transfer you back. We'll probably get you a management job. And at that time, I'm a college graduate. I studied to be a pastor, and I wasn't doing that, and I wasn't going to church or practicing my faith. I was fed up with a lot of it. And I was like, I can't go back there. I mean, can you imagine? I'm going to be in the electronics department at the local Walmart when one of my buddies or an ex-girlfriend walks in, or somebody that everybody's going to know me there, and I can't do that.
Yeah.
And so I didn't do it. And I probably should have, but.
So what'd you do?
Man, my brother-in-law, who wasn't my brother-in-law, he has been in construction his whole life, and I had some background, in trades stuff, through school and high school days, and grew up with a grandfather, that was building stuff. And so I came back as a roofing laborer, like the grunt of all grunts, and was working with, a lot of people in the roofing industry. I'm not saying it's bad, but some checkered past, and they loved knowing that they made more money than the college grad.
100%.
Oh man, I heard it all the time.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was that bad decision not to keep a job that would at least give you some benefits and some better pay. But I could hide up there on the roof and go home at night. But then when the opportunity to serve Habitat for Humanity came along, the first thing I did was volunteer to put a roof on one of the houses, and recruited a lot of the guys that I had been working with that gave me that hard time, and there we were volunteering on a Saturday morning, just strictly volunteering, and then that led into a job, where they were they were paying me to do that. My mom told me I was the biggest idiot for coming back here. Nobody wants you, dude.
Yeah.
Look at you.
So I was
You know?
really curious because I knew you had the habit. Really, I think when you and I reconnected, I mean, we knew each other a little bit from school. Never were like texting each other, let's ride bikes, bro.
Yeah.
You know, none of that. But I knew who you were. What happened to our screen here?
Went to sleep.
But I knew who you were, you know, we ran with some of the same people, all that good stuff. But when I reconnected with you, you were with Habitat for Humanity. So as you were like telling me, you know, how you moved back here, you got into construction with the brother-in-law, I started seeing like, wait a minute, I think I see how you transitioned into the Habitat for Humanity. And what an amazing program that thing
What's
is.
Habitat for Humanity?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Yeah, I'm from
I-
Brazil. I don't know.
Yeah,
And many
but
people may not either. So
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
mean, yeah.
it
Go
truly
ahead.
is a worldwide ministry. But like back in the 70s, some people went on a mission trip
Okay.
of sorts. And then, you know, you go and do something good somewhere else and you come back home and you're like, we should be doing this here at home. So they purchased some land in Georgia
Okay.
and started partnering with impoverished families to build these houses together. And the whole deal was it was like volunteer labor to keep the cost down and as much donated material as it could. And then the investment of these impoverished families was that they helped build
Okay.
their own home and the homes of others. They called it sweat equity, kind of the buy-in,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
the actions more than the words. And then they'd sell these homes at cost for on a mortgage at zero interest.
Okay.
So
To the family.
to the family, yeah. So in Knox County, they've done like 50 some homes, and I joined them when they were in the number 40s. So I was with them for 6 years and helped build 10 homes, 10 different families. And so it just brings people together from all backgrounds. And again, you think like this area it's not a melting pot, but one of the last homes I helped build, we had the age range, you had to be at least 16, but 16-year-olds up to people in their 90s, folks that had immigrated from the DRC and spoke only French, and using Google Translate to, you know, go from English to French and vice versa, and men, women, you know, and it was amazing.
This
you know?
is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And beautiful cause.
Yeah, a ton of experience or, you know, no experience at all with construction, and that was really cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I did that for 6 years.
I've assisted on the volunteer side a couple times, like a Saturday or a Sunday or whatever. And so it is really cool. And one of the best parts about it, I believe, when you just hand something to somebody, majority of the time they don't have any like real respect or value
Yeah,
for
that's
it.
true.
And I know that's an example of sweat equity. And eventually, you know, they have money that they're putting into it too. Although 0% interest, they are. And there's some like ownership, some pride. Like this, I helped build this.
That's why you want to take care of it and,
Right.
and maintain it. And
You know, as I did 1 to 4 family mortgage loans for I don't know how many years, quite some time. And I have my real estate license now as well. And one of the things I see very regularly is when you see a home, oh, this home is foreclosure. And I know tough times happen to all different types of people. But one very common theme when a home is a foreclosure and you look at it and you start looking back at it, you'll see it was a type of loan with 0% money down. The person had no money into the property from the start. So it makes it very easy to walk away when
Yes.
times get tough or I can't make the payment on a car, whatever it may be. It's very easy to say, you know what, I didn't. Now, if that's why you hear a lot of times the bank will want you to put 20% down. So now you have 20% into the house. The odds for you to be in a negative position are pretty tough. You know, it's going to take some value, some neglect on the property over time for that to go down, drop value, and for you to absolutely lose your 20% down. That's their way of having, say, hey, you got some skin in the game. 20% of this house is yours. You're going to take care of it, most likely.
Yeah.
Right.
Not always.
Yeah, not always. No, you can never say always. And the same thing at the same time, you can't say anytime no one has no equity in it, they will blow it. You can't say that either, because there's probably hundreds of
I
thousands
buy
of people
houses like that.
who have nothing in it.
I mean, I use equity from other houses.
Right,
home
absolutely.
equity loans, yeah.
Well, right, but at some point you have some equity,
Yeah.
in it, and so that's where I think is important, and that's what's cool with the whole Habitat for Humanity program is they're getting some buy-in right out of the gate from the person.
And you said you're still a pastor, right? You were a pastor. How did that start? Like, how did you start wanting to be a pastor? Is that since you were a kid?
I think so.
What's the who?
And did you grow up going
Yeah.
to church? Did you have a spiritual
Is
background
it
growing
from
up?
family?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. Talk about it a little bit.
My parents named me Jordan Christian Knight, so I didn't feel like I had a choice. You know, a lot of people of faith are into like predestination. God planned everything out, and so it's all in the name. You know, if my middle name was Jewish, that's what I'd be, right?
Sure.
It's Christian, and so my mom, very religious, very conservative. My dad went along with that program. I think because with my mom, he had to.
Sure.
And so we were in church every Sunday. But I was just talking to somebody today who knew me from like my teenage years, and we know a lot of the same people. And yeah, I was there in body, but not in mind and spirit in my high school days. I was, like whatever constituted being in the church, like could I just barely step into it and then get credit? That's kind of.
It's a ski trip at church?
Yeah, yeah.
I get it.
When I was a little guy, my best buddy, my idol was my grandfather, and he died suddenly when I was 13. And I'd been going through all the steps a kid would in the church, and I don't know. I always thought of it kind of in my mind like you see a tadpole grow, and the last thing after his arms and legs pop off and the tail goes away is they've got this sack under their head, and that's what's left of them being an egg. And that's their last source of food before they, got to start being a frog and getting those bugs and things like that. And I think for those that grow up with, parents or some sort of figure that they're kind of the faith influence, you live off of that. That's kind of your food, your source. And then as you're growing, you can't live on it anymore. And for a lot of us, that's leaving home and going off to college, right? And then you figure out, the first time you get sick, that mommy ain't gonna come and pat your back, and that first time you get your heart broken and you're far away from, and so you can't live off of that faith that's somebody else's. A lot of people do that until the day they die, But yeah, to answer your question, I think it's always been a part of my life. And then when I was in high school, I just had a conversation with a buddy that was a few years ahead of me in school. And he'd gone on to serve as a missionary, and he came home, and he was out seeing the world. He'd been to Mexico, and he ministered to folks that didn't look like him, didn't talk like him, and had all these wonderful stories. And we were sitting at Steak and Shake, and I was like, man, I feel people in that faith-based world to talk about Jesus calling you or Jesus speaking to you, and I don't know about that. But he said, if you can do anything else and be happy, just go on and do that. He said, but I just knew I couldn't do anything else and be really happy. And that's what I've been pursuing ever since. And, a lot of my adult life, it hasn't been the return in like, somebody paying me to do something, because look, man, I don't look and act like a lot of folks. And, a lot of people would say, hey, we really like what you're doing, but, you know.
But look at you.
And so it just always, they call it, yeah, right.
I mean,
right.
I'm being for real.
Well,
just call it a spade a spade, right?
They call it vocation and occupation. And I've always just done whatever I could do to earn a living and then do this work of sharing Jesus and his love with other people. And so when I was working a 9-to-5 to do this mission work, and look, there were people all around me that if I played my cards right, I would get to share my faith with them all day long, and so, yeah, I didn't get into ministry where like a church was, my financial support until the tail end of my time in New Orleans, and and my wife was going to church, and I showed up one Sunday with her, and I was like, can I give you some of my time? Can I volunteer at all? And then fell into being the youth pastor for 6 years. And nothing I ever planned to do here, but yeah, I love Jesus, and I'm blessed that my occupation and what I love to do are the same thing. It took a long time to get there.
So I want to jump into this. So your appearance, right? Just call it what it is.
Yeah.
Untraditional.
Yeah.
I haven't come across very many pastors that have a tattoo, let alone, how many do you got? Do you know?
Man. A
Yeah,
lot.
I mean, you're covered, right?
Yeah, it's
so
getting there.
what do you feel as a whole? Because I'll tell you, and whether you believe in Christ or not, that's each person to their own.
Yeah.
I can tell you a lot of people, and we already know this, but a lot of people are turned off by the church because there can be some real judgy, and this is their preconceptions or whatever. Maybe they've even experienced it, but real judgy, stiff, old school, and then here you are, you're covered in tattoos. You got the plugs in the ears. What do you say to that, or what are some things people have come at you?
Yeah, that was about some real experience that you had because of appearance.
Well,
Yeah.
it starts in the family you grow up in. My dad, who's now sleeved and has a lot himself, but
He does?
Didn't start until he was in his 50s.
Okay.
My mother being very conservative. Yeah, I mean, in her eyes, I'm destined for hell, and that's
Still to this day?
I would imagine so. Yeah,
Really?
I would have guessed that stance has not changed, but in that conservative upbringing.
And your dad has them too?
Yeah. But that
Okay.
my parents are a whole nother.
Sure.
Let me answer this
To each
man's
their own.
question. Right.
Sorry.
I just felt like, it didn't matter what I looked like before I had them. There was enough people to poke fun or just pick anything out, right? And I didn't have any markings on myself. But we grew up in the country, so we didn't have cable, which saved us from a lot of that raunchy stuff you'd see on TV. That
Yeah, like Married with
conservative-
Children.
Yeah. I had to sneak over to the grandparents to watch the wavy lines after
Right.
10 o'clock, and so
He doesn't know the wavy
You don't know
line.
wavy lines?
I have no
Let's
idea.
remember,
All right.
he didn't grow up here,
My
right?
kids don't remember they don't understand cable
Right.
because they have access to everything.
I know some of you guys remember the wavy line.
Okay, so you had
There's
basic
you're a-
cable, which you couldn't get in the country. There was no way to bring it to you, and so people that lived in town would have like 30 some channels, and then the premium channels like HBO, Cinemax and stuff. If you didn't pay for them, they would just be these wavy
Blurred out.
lines,
Yeah.
and that included the Playboy channel.
Oh, okay.
So yes, and in my very Christian upbringing, I very much value naked women. As all people should, right?
Yeah.
And so you'd be over at grandma's late at night, 12, 13, 14
12.
years old. Like, I think I saw a boob.
Yeah, it would move from left to right, and you'd be like, "Oh, my brother,
got it. Get some friends over here.
Yeah, I'd be with my brother, but you saw it, right? So, but yeah, you didn't understand that. That's why we
And
had no
then,
swing.
like once or twice a year, the heavens would open, and it would be the free preview weekend where you got these channels for free for 48 hours. And I mean, I'm just telling you, I was raw by the end of the
Sure.
week. It's just like, I didn't get any sleep. Gotta ask for forgiveness. Look. So she was very conservative. We didn't have all these channels, and everything was kind of a concern that you might fall into sin. Satan's prowling around but she a teacher too, an educator, and my dad too, and so we were always at the library, and the library was freedom to read anything you wanted. You can read anything you want here. Well, anything you want, man. I love history. I love Native people. I wanted to be an Indian my whole life. What do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be an Indian, hunt buffalo, live in a teepee, And I was always like marking on myself, drawing on myself. Everybody had that binder at school, right? Where you're like
sure.
etching Metallica in there, you know, like why not my arm?
Yeah.
And so the rule was not under our roof. And then as soon as I was off at college, because a lot of guys, as soon as they're out of the house, that first tattoo pops on. So me and I blessed to play D3 football, and so there was 6, 7, 10 of us went down to the shop. And
What was your first?
up on my shoulder is a Trinity knot, or a Celtic knot, 3 circles that are intertwined.
Yeah.
I was just I didn't have a mindset like this is what I'm going to do with my body and my future, but why not? And then not with like some clear they're all going to be religious or biblical stories or people that have influenced my faith, but that's what they've all become. And then, you know, the people that have impacted my life found a spot on my body somewhere, but I'm running out of room.
Sure. Yeah. So you got back, chest, arm.
Yeah. Not much. There's more covered than there ain't covered.
Sure.
And as a chaplain, when I'm hanging out with all these old ladies, you know, and they expect the minister's gonna look like a minister, he's gonna be this old kind of heavy set dude, and you know, and then I walk in and these little old ladies are like, do you
Is he
have
the substitute?
Who's this guy?
do you have them? Do you have them everywhere? And I'm like, wink at him, I'm like, you little sinner.
They're everywhere.
You little sinner, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but it is very untraditional.
No,
you know?
let me ask you a question. And that's because I want to learn. I'm here to learn a little bit. A lot of people say that tattoos are is a sin to have tattoos and earrings and everything. Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts about that? Talk about it a little bit.
That's a really good question. And I did, so like, people generally assume like I found Jesus later in life, like after I got out of prison or after I left the drug game or, you know, the motorcycle club, you know, and I'm like, no, man, I was like always in church, you know, and like, well, yeah, but you did, you know, after you stopped doing crack and you got all those tattoos. And I'm like, no, man, they're all like about Jesus and stuff. You know, it was a situation where I saw it as this opportunity in a way. Like I never enjoyed being uncomfortable in my own skin, and at some point, a man that was very influential in my life, you know, kind of a spiritual father of sorts, and I was bent out because somebody's giving me a hard time, and he said, if you can't stand people looking at you different, you better not be different. Mm-hmm. And so there's a cost at doing that. But I was going to school to study to do this, which my parents was like, when you tell your parents that you want to study to be a minister, they're like I asked them to go to magic camp or something, you know, or like I was going to try out for American Idol and that's how I was going to make it. They saw no future in it,
sure.
You know?
And they're religious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. And so there's very little to stand on as far as scripture goes, in my opinion. There's an Old Testament text, which I have tattooed on my arm with a tattoo machine, tattooing this in it, but it's Leviticus 19:28. It says, do not tattoo your body or cut your body to honor the dead. Okay. I always tell people that comes at the same time where it talks about don't eating meat that's medium, cooked medium. Don't bang your mom or sister. Right. You know, there's a lot of rules in there.
Right.
And then when we're talking about don't covet, so don't be jealous. You know, don't steal anything. Don't take anything that's not yours. I think there, what is it, like 613 rules recorded in the Bible. And then this guy named Jesus comes along and says, I cover a multitude of them. And there's nothing you could do to make me stop loving you. And I think where Christianity gets it right is when you show up being an out-of-towner in Brazil and you say, oh, this is what you guys believe, this is what you practice, it sounds a lot like what I believe. Mm-hmm. And let me show you how, as opposed to, oh, you don't look like me, you don't sound like me, you definitely don't dress like me, you're going to hell, and this is how I can rescue you from going to hell, and if you don't want to go to hell, I'll send you there anyways because you're going to die because you're a sinner, right? Mm-hmm. And that's, to what degree that's still alive in this world. I think that's why people are just, they're done with it, you know, especially in the last 2 years. God really hasn't showed up for a lot of people. So, you know, in terms of like, you guys are running a business, you're professionals, entrepreneurs, you know, you're trying to earn a living. I mean, a nonprofit business is much the same. And what the church world has been offering people is pretty poor. So, you know, people have been telling me I've been going to hell for a long time. They still tell me that every now and again. They may be right.
You know what I love though?
So is there people that actually, sorry, Lauren.
It's okay.
Is there people that actually go, like, get to you and say that in your face, there you
Oh,
go.
yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I guarantee there are.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Well, I
That's
mean,
crazy.
we don't come from the same place, but I mean, New Orleans is big carnival season. And Brazil is Carnival, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of decadence. I would imagine there's somebody down there telling y'all, don't be partying so hard.
Yes.
Don't be showing your skin. Don't be getting drunk. Don't be fornicating, all
Yeah.
these things. Well, the same thing, you go, you know, one of the highlights for me living in New Orleans was I worked for this, he was really crooked. If you ever saw Better Call Saul,
Yeah.
I know the real one. And so he ran this corner grocery store, and he had all kinds of interesting things about him. But we would go down to Jackson Square, which is a block off of Bourbon Street where all the partying is happening. And it's the big Catholic cathedral, which Catholicism has its own concerns too, right? And then there'd be Jesus hanging on a cross, you know, some white guy with red paint on, and he's hanging on, people on bullhorns telling you fags are going to hell, and, you know, if you're partying, you're going to hell. And they'd have signs of all these sins and why you was going, you know, turn or burn and stuff. And looking like I look, and being who I'm around, they just think you're another one of this trash that's going to hell.
Right.
And so my boss would get me in all these, you know, fights with people, and we'd go twist their words around and just have fun with them, and just mess around with them. It was a good time, man.
So I have a similar experience at the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
I've been, I believe, 7 years, but in every year I've gone, they've been there. But it's very much in the Bible Belt, right?
Yeah.
It's in the middle of Kentucky. You have to park, or at least where we would park is like Papa John's football stadium, and you have a couple blocks there. You got to walk to Churchill Downs, the horse track. Yeah. And because me and my friends, along with thousands of others, are going to a horse race, of which I'm sure many people gamble.
Yeah.
There's going to be some cocktails and some
drinking,
beers.
a lot of drinking.
And your entire walk on both sides of the street, megaphones, waving Bibles, saying you're all going to hell.
Yeah.
And I found it so disturbing because, and I don't know what page, but somewhere in that book it says only one man can judge, and and that's Christ himself, right? Or God. And I find it so disturbing. Like, you people are the ones who are. I assume you come out here in hopes of changing someone's mind, right? Of like getting someone to, and I don't mean change their mind about the horse race. I assume you're wanting them to change their mind about who they follow or what it is. And I'm not trying to take this whole religious route, but it's just like, what do you guys think you're accomplishing by beating everyone down and kicking them? It's like that's the total wrong approach.
Yeah.
On anything in life.
I couldn't agree more. I'm smiling because I just have so many good
seen
times
it.
of watching this horribleness go down, just as like a people watcher and a spectator. But yeah, so you quoted like the judge not lest ye be judged. We get all King Jamesy when we throw that out there, right? But the translation I like is judge with the same measure that you want people to judge you with.
Fair enough.
And because we've talked even here recently, I hold myself to a high standard. And I'm not expecting everybody else around me to hold themselves to the same standard, but I'm going to judge you with the same high judgment that I place on my own self. And hopefully not to push you down or to beat on you, but hopefully to lift you up, to elevate you, because I'm not the pinnacle of anything. There are people much better than me, which that I would pale in comparison to, but the same thing. They hold themselves to a high standard. We should all do that, and
Definitely.
I'd say quite often I've done more, pardon my French, but I've done more dumb shit than majority of you guys out here. So I'm not sitting here judging, I mean, I don't want you to judge my dumb stuff.
I want you to know when I
trust me.
said the word fag a few minutes ago, I was only quoting somebody.
Totally.
But see, I always feel like I get a pass when I say this because my dad's gay. So I feel like when people, say something off color that's racist and they try to be like, I'm not racist, I got a black friend, they're always trying to justify it. I know too about you.
That's the dumbest thing.
But I knew when you said that, you're literally, and I've seen the signs.
Yeah.
I've seen what people are yelling. So
Well, the first thing that happens, y'all release this, and you're trying to get some traction, and then I get fired from the church for confessing that I got a gay dad, and I use that word, and then that's how I get to the Joe Rogan podcast in a couple weeks. Don't you believe it? Dude, here's what I would do, man. Because let's be honest, man. Marijuana's legal now.
Correct.
We don't have to act like it's the devil's lettuce anymore.
correct.
And I was always so worried, like years ago, like somebody's gonna jump out around the corner. You're like, I knew it, get him. And so I had it in my mind that, like, if for some reason it was found out that I smoked marijuana, that they would come and take all my kids away and get them. And I'm like, what would you do, Jordan? And I'm like, that's when I would get in contact with Joe Rogan, and he would save them. And I'm like, man, you think of some dumb things when you're high.
That's
but it sounded like a good.
That's the
idea
marijuana
at the time.
talking.
Yeah.
That was a marijuana.
that's
Joe
like-
Rogan is not calling you.
No,
bro.
he's not. He's not. I was like convinced, man. I was like, well, dude, we got the same birthday. That'll be on my lead-in. Like,
See, there you go. So maybe he will.
Maybe after
my
this
savior.
podcast.
Yeah.
a couple weeks from now.
Well, no, I greatly appreciate it. This has been a blast, and I'm not ready to hang it up yet. I had a question I did want to throw out to you today. What's something you would say to 16-year-old Jordan? What would you say to your 16-year-old self in hopes of better avoiding whatever or better helping you, or do you know what I mean?
I don't want to think about it too long because then I'll change my answer. So the first thing that came to mind was don't wait so long to be you. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, I'd like that.
Yeah.
I really like
I
that.
think I was working at that in high school and in younger years, but you're just growing. You're just a kid. But I think just that, because I could care less what people's perceptions or thoughts of me are now.
So you think for very long you were like trying to fit yourself in what other people
Whatever
thought about you?
the mold was, my parents had kind of charted
Sure.
for me,
Friends.
and then your peers around you, and what you're gonna do with your life. Yeah, and I couldn't fit in that mold well enough to make everyone happy, and then when life, I guess just through living it, opening my eyes, that you have a lot more fun if you be who God created you to be. And that's the way I live. Is not for everybody. You should be you,
Yes.
and everybody should. I tell people all the time, it's if it doesn't hurt you and it doesn't hurt somebody else, you should probably pursue that.
Yeah.
It must be good if it's only blessing people. And that's what I would tell myself. Yeah,
No, I really
don't wait
like
too
that.
long.
I really
like
like that a lot,
Yeah.
man.
And I kind of think like that too. I think, you have that. You are who your family is. Like if you have a father and a mother, brothers, most things that you think and who you are is who you like. People that you listen to, who you learn from, who you talk to the most. And then after 15, 16, 17 years old, that's when you start meeting more people from other places. You know that you can change your mind, that you don't need to do everything your parents want you to do. You don't need to follow the career that your father needs you. I'm not saying that you can't. I'm saying that now you can. You have your mind already ready to think and do what you want to do in life, basically. So yeah, I agree with that. I think that's
Absolutely. And one thing, like, when I hear that, it like breaks my heart when I hear, suicide, things like that. And suicide to me is always something that's so frustrating. But let alone when it's someone who is young, because it's like at 15, at 19. I mean, what do we even know? Like you said, you spend so many years captured or feeling stuck in that, like, gosh, I got to figure out what everyone wants me to be here. It's like, no, that is not life, And so many young people, I think, grow up trying to please or even just understand what am I supposed to be doing? What am I supposed to be? This pressure of like, oh, what are you going to do when you get out of school? What jobs are you going to have? Why aren't you having kids yet? Why aren't you married? And all this stuff that society just throws on us. So, like, knowing that pressure does get to some people where they just have had absolutely enough and don't have 1 ounce of desire to go any further, like, that frustrates me because I know how much more life is out here. And then when you see young people do it, it's like, God, I hate that. So you saying that is actually pretty cool. I think that's some outstanding advice to a young self. you know?
Yeah. Maybe I'll get to time travel back and figure that out.
Someday.
We're
You
just
never
all
know.
part of the Matrix, and yeah.
You never know, man. No. Well, what do you guys think? I think we accomplished some good stuff. I greatly appreciate you taking the time out of your day and your week to come do this, and maybe we'll do it more.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, this is the first time we're bringing a guest. Lauren and I were just recording videos talking between us, but this, I think,
This is what we're after, man.
this is
Right on.
what we want. It's just open conversations, no script. We didn't know what
No.
we were gonna talk about. I'm learning about him today, so it's like, it's awesome. I like this type of conversation.
Yeah, no, I appreciate being here, and I think this is a type of conversation where I'm sitting with others where, we just have a good talk, we have a good time. We're like, man, we should be recording this.
Right.
Other people need to hear
I
this.
know. We've done it for years, and that's what. Hey, here we are. So hopefully, all you guys out there are still listening. Hopefully, you guys are enjoyed the podcast. We're looking forward to doing many, many more Talk About It podcasts. I'm Lauren Fulmer,
I'm Victor Dantas.
and today we had special guest Jordan Knight. Jordan, thank you so much, man.
Man, appreciate you
Thank you very
both.
much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Ryan.
Thank you.
All right.